difficult.
Yeah.
You have relationships, and you can't
Mm-hmm.
like
For sure.
forever. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's just where I am with all of that. And that's that. So I'm just pulling just a few more of these and looking at Djokovic. This story, it's interesting because see what people don't realize is that, and I'll say this because it's a matter of public record, a lot of athletes have been getting very sick. They've been, having heart problems. And they're seeing it all. They're seeing it all over Europe. And someone like an athlete like a Djokovic, you're not dealing with people who don't carry huge payrolls, right?
Hartman radio program.
Right.
Number one, everything that they bring into their bodies is a calculation. Everything they bring in, everything. And they are, thank you so much, they are carrying a lot. I mean, it's a lot of money. And trust me, he had been issued his visa with the understanding that he was not vaccinated. So this is a bit of grandstanding publicly, which, it's like,
Right.
you all have a 90% vaccination rate there, and you are having a surge. So this ain't the unvaccinated who are doing this.
30
so
seconds.
Stop. You really need to stop and just keep this going because I'm running. I'll run this off during the break. So they're playing a lot of games here. Just going because I'm running.
15 seconds.
And I say that, when I look at the
10 seconds.
vaccination rate for Black people in New York, which is below 30%, it's a big, big thing. So,
yeah, it's huge.
Just a lot.
Change the world, change the world. Can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, Friday, January 7th. 2022. I am Santita Jackson coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. Let me give my brother Jonathan a special shout out. It is his birthday, sending him much love today, and he was actually born on a Friday. Can you believe it? That's right. God bless you. I love you, Johnny. And everybody, I want you to meet me over on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Please meet me there. Many of you are trying to friend me on the Santita Jackson page. That's a landing page. You top out at 5,000. I did that many years ago. So if you want to meet with me and be my friend, and I certainly want that to happen, please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. And then we're going to stream live there too. But please, I want you to like and subscribe. I need you to like and subscribe on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. So please do that. Like and subscribe, everybody. Like and subscribe. And meet me on Twitter at Santita J. And let's see what else. IG, Instagram, Santita Jackson IG. So Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook, Santita Jackson IG on Instagram, at Santita J on Twitter. Please like me over there. And the Santita Jackson page on YouTube is just a landing page. The real page is Santita Jackson and Friends. See, I had to add my friends to it. So, everybody, it's cold today here in Chicago. It's cold all over the country. We're living through a cold wave. It is really, really, really tough. So, everybody, stay warm and check on your neighbors to make sure that they're doing okay. I just wonder about that fire, that horrific fire where we lost all those children and adults. And I'm wondering if people are using space heaters as their primary form of heat. We take for granted that a lot of people have electricity and gas. They don't. And so we need to check in, and maybe we need to change some policies so that people have their basic needs met. in the winter months, everybody. So we're going to be we're going to extend our conversation about the Chicago public schools and the public schools, just our schools, and what is happening with school closures. We see from, as we've been talking to Mike Smith from the Chicago Teachers Union and other teachers, the kids have not been in school, and a lot of the teachers have not been in school because of COVID, because of fear. So what the Chicago Teachers Union did actually was formalize a process that was already happening. We've got to talk about that. And I don't assign any ill intent to the mayor or to any of these actors. I'm not coming from that place at all. I'm not. I don't want to, as my brother Jonathan says, I don't want to fix blame. I want to fix problems. We do not have a plan to mitigate this virus beyond vaccines, and the vaccines are limited in their scope. You can still get COVID, you can still spread COVID. So that's not the complete answer. We're not going to vaccinate our way out of this. We're not. And the old ways were not working for everybody. We're going to have to figure out remote learning for a whole lot of reasons, not just COVID. You have a lot of kids who have to stay home and babysit their baby brothers and sisters because they're from single parent homes or they have a parent who's sick. Should they be denied school? We have to start thinking out the box. The world we left in 2019 is not the world of 2022, nor should it be. So let's move forward, everybody. Let us move forward. Let's think about how we're going to really live in this new world. All right, everybody. So let's get to some of these headlines, and then we're going to be talking about voting rights. Chuck Schumer, the majority leader in the U.S. Senate, is now saying that in light of the January 6th insurrection and the anniversary and the thoughts about it, and because Republicans state by state are pushing for minority rule, they're gerrymandering the majority out of power. We're going to have to push for voting rights. Well, my goodness, I'm so glad it's high time they did that. We did vote on that in 2020. So let's get going, everybody. Got to talk about that too. Everybody, in Chicago, we're going to have a high of 14 degrees today. Mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 4 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed down 170 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 19 points, and the S&P 500 closed down 4 points. In the NBA, the Timberwolves will be facing off against the Thunder, and the Wizards will be here in Chicago facing off against the Bulls in the NHL. The Wild were triumphant over the Bruins, but Chicago wasn't so fortunate. The Coyotes 6, the Chicago team 4. Former Biden advisors are calling for a new COVID strategy. I think they're hearing Dr. Deborah Holden. 6 former health advisors to President Biden's transition team released a series of journal articles yesterday calling for a new normal in the nation's approach to fighting coronavirus and other viral threats. In the articles, the advisors lay out dozens of recommendations, sometimes explicitly and often implicitly criticizing the federal response. They're telling us that we are going to have to develop a new strategy because COVID is going nowhere. The pandemic is now endemic. It's not going anywhere, and we're going to have to figure out a way to live with it. What do you think about that? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. You can text me at that number as well, but I want to know what your thoughts are because in the meantime, the American Medical Association, as I shared yesterday, is slamming the CDC for mixed messaging on new isolation guidelines. We have to find a way to live with COVID. In the meantime, no school today in Chicago Public Schools, the 3rd largest school district in the United States of America. The CTU and the city remain at odds. They remain at odds over reopening, over safety protocols. We're seeing this in Oakland, California. We're seeing this in San Francisco. We're seeing this all over the country. What are we going to do, everybody? And I was reading a letter from a Cobb parent in Atlanta who is saying, as the headline says, the lack of COVID safety in schools in Atlanta endangers kids, and they are worried. Parents and people are worried all over the country. What are we going to do about it? This is not just a Chicago problem. This is a national problem. Do we have barriers? Have we changed the between the kids? I mean, we still have overcrowded classrooms when the kids are there. Got to talk about this, everybody. I'm going to be talking about it on the Santita Jackson Show today. More than 60 million people are under winter weather alerts across the United States, just like we are here in Chicago, as several storm systems grip the country on the West Coast. Record-breaking rain and snowmelt in Washington and California are causing river flooding and avalanches across much of the South. Dropping temperatures are causing icy road conditions that have led to massive backups and accidents in states like Kentucky, where they had a more than 20-car pileup yesterday that brought traffic to a halt. Yesterday, House Democrats and two Republicans, former Vice President Dick Cheney and his daughter, Congresswoman Liz Cheney, were commemorating the January 6th insurrection, everybody. House Democrats seem to be interested in highlighting the effects of last year's Capitol insurrection as part of their midterm election strategy, even looking at whether President Trump behaved in a criminal manner. What do you think? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Indeed, she said on CNN last night, we know from firsthand testimony that the president, then President Trump, watched television while the attack was underway. We know that he did not walk the very few steps to the White House briefing room, get on camera immediately, and tell the people to stop and go home. What do you think about that? Should he be held criminally liable? In the meantime, in Chicago, there is a travel advisory. Every state in the union and 4 territories are now on a list. If you have upcoming travel plans, you may want to reconsider, according to WBBM News Radio. On Wednesday, the Chicago Department of Public Health added the only state and the only territory that were not on the list, everybody, Montana and Guam, to the advisory. The move effectively expands the list to all 49 outside states and four U.S. territories. So what's going to happen, everybody? How are we going to live with this? In the meantime, the Moderna CEO is warning people that they may need a 4th COVID shot, as the efficacy of boosters are likely to decline over time. So what do you think about that, everybody? How often will we be getting these shots or not getting them? What do you think? It's a lot to talk about on the Santita Jackson Show today, so let's get to it, everybody. Let's get to it. In the meantime, we have got the glorious, the anointed pastor, Tisha Williams. We're so glad that you're with us today. Happy New Year, my beloved sister from the First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton, New York. So glad to hear your voice. So glad to hear your voice. I know it's a little scratchy this morning, but that's all right. It's cold everywhere. You all are having snow in New York City.
It is cold. Woke up to a whole yard full of snow. It is actively snowing here. We're on storm watch as well, as you mentioned. So, yeah, tis the season.
Tis the season to stay warm and to protect that golden voice of yours, because, that's what happens.
Correct.
And, I have to watch it. Now I'm walking around like I understand Pavarotti, God rest his soul. He used to walk around, even in the heat, with his voice, with something wrapped around his voice to keep it warm. Miss Flack, Roberta Flack, who I worked for, she did the same thing. Aretha Franklin would wear a fur in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
She would not perform in an air-conditioned venue. Yeah, I mean, you had to turn it off. So, when we use these voices, this is what happens. You're vulnerable there. I guess that's the nature of your strength. But
agreed. I'm the same way. If I have to preach, I'm like, the air has to come off.
My father's the same way. He's the same way.
Yeah.
He starts sneezing. And in fact, let me tell you something real funny before you go to this. And everyone knew that my father gets, is very sensitive to temperature changes. Mm-hmm. So he's giving his speech at the 1988 convention, of course, wrapping up his campaign. And we're sitting on the stage. He had just, given salutations. His suit is waving like a flag in a storm. We were like, they had turned the air conditioner. There's an air conditioner at the podium because they don't want people sweating, right? They had turned it on full blast, and they said, we can't turn it off. So there's a picture of my brother Jesse crawling on the floor while he's on international TV with his body against the gratings, so my father wouldn't sneeze. Wow. Then my other brother Jonathan slid a cardboard and tape. Oh, we're doing all this manipulating while we're sitting here smiling on the stage, while my mother and I are like get this thing up there. Because he only had a few minutes before he
Right.
would start to sneeze. And then they said, we cannot turn it off. We were like, are you serious? Girl.
Oh, no.
No, so girl,
Yeah.
God is good.
All the time. All
God
the
is good.
time.
We
All
worked
the
we
time.
worked it
Even in
out.
the snow and 20, what did you say the high today is? What, 20 degrees?
In Chicago's no, darling, 14.
That's what I thought I heard. Okay, wishful thinking, 14.
4 degrees in Minneapolis, St. Paul. That is the high.
Oh,
Okay.
praying for Minneapolis, St. Paul. Well, today is definitely a day, given the weather conditions and all that's going on, is a day that we will procrastinate. And that's what I want to talk to you today about. I want to talk today about feeling froggy. You know, when we procrastinate excessively, our entire life suffers. And procrastination just results in stress and poor results. And while it may relieve pressure in the moment, it can have high emotional, physical, and practical costs. A cost that our subject, Pharaoh, never counted, but paid the price when he procrastinated on partnering with Moses to end the plague. So our sermonic scene is set in Egypt when Moses and Aaron are sent by God to Pharaoh to demand, you know it, that he let his people go so that they may serve Israel. 10 times God permits Pharaoh to change his mind, and 10 times because of pride, and in this case, procrastination, Pharaoh refuses the Lord's leadership and receives punishment in the forms of punitive plagues. This plague in particular was frogs. God sends a swarm of frogs to plague the people of Egypt. Can you imagine? I am someone, Santita, who suffers from radnitophobia, which is the fear of frogs. And so this is super personal for me. Can you see frogs on their bodies, on the stove, in the oven, in the fridge, on the couch, in the bed, in the closets, tucked in shoes, teeming from the toilets and falling from the faucets, frogs swinging from the ceiling fan and frogs roasting in the hearth, trying to swat them for whatever that's worth in the personal products and on the produce in the baby's crib and all over the crib. Frogs are everywhere. And while afflicted by this amphibious anarchy, when asked when he would like to be rid of the frogs, a foolish Pharaoh says, do it tomorrow. What? Do it tomorrow? Let me just pause here parenthetically, though, to ponder the many times the marginalized like Moses have approached the powers that be in an effort to effect change only to be met with a resounding tomorrow. Since 1619, we've been waiting on the promise of tomorrow that in many ways has never come. And yet I digress. Pharaoh, why are you putting off for tomorrow what God can do today? Is that your story? I want you to put yourself in Pharaoh's frog-filled footwear for a moment. Could it be that the same reasons Pharaoh procrastinated with his polyrod problem is the same reason we procrastinate with ours? According to psychologists, procrastination involves a degree of self-deception. So at some level, procrastinators are aware of their actions and the consequences, but changing their habits requires even greater effort than completing the task in front of them. Help us, Tish. You see, Pharaoh's high self-perception leads to self-deception, hindering his extrication from his situation. Why did he say do it instead of adding tomorrow? Maybe he thought the task too large for God. Oh, Pharaoh, what arrogance to believe that you can give God grace when God is the one who gives us grace. Who am I talking to this morning? The fact is, the frogs that you're facing today are too fierce, ferocious, and forbidding for you. But God is saying for him, they're a non-factor. So as you face this new year, know today that God has the power to kill what you cannot. In fact, I want you to pay attention to this. The 10 plagues were representative of God's wrath against every god they worshiped, including the Egyptian god of fertility, who had a frog's head and a woman's body. So you see, it wasn't that they couldn't kill the frogs or they didn't kill the frogs. They couldn't kill the frogs because they worshiped the frogs. That's what I want to tell somebody today. You can't kill what you're worshiping. You can't kill worry and worship it. You can't kill problems and praise it. You can't kill mistakes and magnify it. You can't kill idiosyncrasies and idolize it. You can't kill low expectations and exalt it. You can't kill anxiety and adore it. You can't kill difficulties and make them deities. You can't kill it, but God can. So the question is today, what are you putting off for tomorrow, what God can do today? If you had the power to kill it, you'd have done it already. So in 2022, if you're feeling froggy, jump. God has the power to kill what you can't. And that's the good news.
Oh, amen. I love it. You're talking to me. I thank you. I needed that. Killing me softly with your song. I
I'm talking
appreciate
to
that.
myself. Talking to myself.
It's something I'm going
I
to do
got a
as soon
lot of
as I get
frogs,
off the air.
Santita.
Thank
Got a
you.
lot of frogs, including the one in my throat.
But that's okay. That will, just keep gargling and resting.
Yep.
Just keep gargling and resting because there's just so much going on out here. Oh,
But God has the power to kill what you are wrestling with. I promise you.
amen to that. And I hope you feel better. I'm so glad that you're with us today, though. Thank you for the
So
gift
glad.
of you today. Savannah said
Of
she
course.
needed she needs a written version of that. I tell you what, just go to
Amen.
wcpt.com/Santita and listen to it. There will be no commercials. Just go right to it, everybody. Go right to it. About 18 minutes in.
Amen.
Bring her on because we need that blessing. We needed that blessing today.
God bless you.
Oh my goodness. God bless you. And thank you so much. And you know what? We have got Dr. Deborah Furholden, who is our health
Yay.
expert here. Yes, I know. And Dr. Shanita Knighton, infection preventionist, registered nurse with us today. Maybe she can give you a few tips on gargling
I
and
was
whatnot.
thinking.
She can. She can. And then, of course, we've got Mike Smith from the Chicago Teachers Union, teacher from mighty Inglewood High School. I ain't mad at you, Mike, even though it's not Whitney Young. That's all right. All right. I got to think about these public schools, because I love it. I'm a product of them. And then, of course, Dr. Marnie Reeves from the United Federation of Teachers, American Federation of Teachers. She is the hardest working woman I know. She is a professor at CUNY, City University of New York, and she teaches. In addition to being this union steward, she also teaches in the public schools of New York City. And so we're so glad to have all of you here today. We're going to extend your time because we want to go for an hour today to talk about this because Dr. Deb, it seems that these advisors are now listening to you finally, but you should be on these health commissions. These members of President Biden's transition team, they released a series of articles in JAMA, which is, of course, a very, very highly esteemed medical journal. And they said, look, oh my goodness, the coronavirus, COVID-19 specifically, is endemic. So we've got to change the strategy. We've got to learn to live with this. Dr. Deb, you have been, well, not vindicated, you've just been further affirmed. What do they mean we've got to learn how to live with this? You got to laugh about this.
I'm by my colleagues. I'm not kidding you. And I'm going to just say it, and I'm going to say it boldly. They raised their hands for this stuff. They raised their hands. Like me, who popped their chest out to publish in JAMA. What good is a JAMA article? They did a national press release of this big strategy before all these articles. Those articles didn't just crop up. So they're hiding, to me, behind the article. They had the president here. They were sitting in front of him. Who grappled with him? Who said, hey, Joe, we fumbling. This is what we really have to be doing. Hey, Joe, your approach is patchwork. Hey, Joe, stop giving people false hope that we are beating the virus or that you want to be able to beat the virus, because none of that is true. You know, so to me, it's like, okay, I got it. Y'all got some JAMA articles. They'll be wildly cited. All these people, the academics, will get tenure and promotion out of it. But they missed the opportunity to make a difference while they had the mic and were sitting in the seat right in front of old Joe. They didn't get the job done. So finally, I'm glad that saying the things that we already know. I feel like I'm the only scientist willing to put myself out there like that and speak truth to power. I gave my own story of contracting COVID and saying it wasn't enough. The advice that people gave us wasn't enough. I lulled myself, all sense of security, because I went to a wedding reception. Physicians. And guess what? Physicians caused a massive COVID outbreak of Omicron. That might have been the event, because we came from all over the country at that wedding. And you know what I just found out, Santita? I thought I only gave it to my daughter, Jordan. Lo and behold, my daughter Olivia had symptoms that whole time, but she kept testing negative. We just found out, she went and looked in her email. Her third rapid test actually came back positive, and she missed it. Like, literally, this is the gift that keeps on giving, this thing called COVID. And to get these leaders, to get them all in the room, these big brains, and them to fall short of doing the job, and now 2 Mondays after the game, to hide behind some JAMA articles saying this is what we should be doing and what we could be doing, and sneak this on the president and the strategy, I have a problem with that. I don't like a sneak dissing. Look me right in my face and tell me I'm wrong. And they didn't do that, and they're still not doing it. So, it's better, but to me it's more the same. It's going to be some halfway, marginal, incremental progress. And in the meantime, we aren't learning to live with it. People are getting sick, and people are dying, and old Joe is busy patting himself on the back while his approval ratings proceed to go down the toilet.
Wow. Mic drop on that. In the meantime, the Chicago Teachers Union formalized what many people are seeing, what school district after school district are seeing all over the country. Kids are not in school. Teachers are not in school. Workers are not in the school ecosystem because they have COVID or they're fearful of it. They don't know how to live with it. Let's talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show. And why are we locking the children's teachers out of the system that will allow them to teach remotely? I mean, come on, everybody. All hands on deck. Let's work this out. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. We're on Facebook Live. Would you mind if I connect Pastor Williams? Are you still there?
WCPT820.com. Where facts.
Yes, I'm still here.
Could I connect you to Doctors Knighton and Verholden after the show?
Sure.
Okay, let me do that. And I'm going to connect you all. Dr. Knighton and Dr. Verholden, she needs to speak with you after the show.
Dr. Verholden and I, we go back already.
Well, call her. Call her. She needs
I
to.
will call her. How are you? Happy New Year.
Yeah, she needs to.
Let me tell you the new set of calls I'm getting. The new calls I'm getting is everybody has COVID. Like, literally. When I tell you where we're heading towards is we gonna all have to learn to live with it. Well, what happened over the Christmas break with this new variant, which I told people about? I'm like, this thing is, I call it the wildfire variant. It just spreads so easily. It's so sticky. And now everybody, I honestly can tell you about 10% of the people that I know personally have COVID right now. It's crazy.
It's the same way with me too, Dr. Dan. So I've been having the same exact issue, and Cuyahoga County got the third highest rates in the country.
Yep.
Well, why is that?
I ain't gonna lie. Well, we the fourth largest city. Cleveland is the fourth largest city in America.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's got a lot to do with our living arrangements. I'm sure it has to do with our working conditions. I'm seeing things roll back here. So I'm be honest, as upsetting as it is, I'm not surprised.
In the meantime, we've got a travel advisory in Chicago for every state in all four territories.
Yeah.
How you doing, Mike Smith?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Well, you're an old friend now. So, you're on with Dr. Knighton, Dr. Verholden, and Dr. Reeves.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone.
All these doctors.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Reeves.
Hey, Dr. Knighton, how's it going? I actually just posted your stuff in my union's Google Classroom. So everybody is seeing it, including the president of the union.
Correct. Minute 30.
We have a meeting next week.
Awesome. And if they need any other recommendations, then let me know. I know some of the work that I'm doing right now is around figuring out ways to do scheduling to keep classrooms safe and like cleaning in between. Because I know there's a lot of like toggling that typically goes on, you know, when we're talking about middle schoolers and high schoolers, and classroom sharing that happens between teachers. And so right now they're working through strategies with certain schools to make sure that they're counteracting that, as well as dealing with surveillance systems so they can monitor illness and detect if they're having outbreaks in classrooms, not necessarily just looking at individual cases.
Well, hold on one
So they're
second.
able to like kind of contact
Mike
trace.
Smith, are you all doing, do you all have
Okay.
anyone like that, that the union, the Chicago Teachers Union
30
are
seconds.
talking to?
I was just thinking that this could be very helpful.
You need her. Okay, and let me tell you, the person who is really the wheel in the middle of the wheel on this for us is Dr. Deborah Verholden. Brilliant epidemiologist. She comes out of Johns Hopkins. They brought her to the School of
10
Medicine at
seconds.
Michigan State so that she could create their School of Public Health. So you need both of these women.
5.
Okay?
Yes.
So I want to make that happen after the show.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Please call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Renee Criswell, I want to hear you today. I want you to call us so we can have this conversation. We're going to extend it for an hour today because we've got a lot to work out here. We, don't want to fix blame. We want to fix problems, but we certainly do want to look at who's responsible for and who should be responsible for fixing policies and really establishing practices that will keep us safe. People all over the country, parents, teachers, students, the janitorial staffs, the people, our food services workers, they all want to know how they can stay safe. Is anyone talking to the food service workers about how they're to serve the food, how they're to prepare the food? Do they know that they should not be speaking over the food? Do different people use different spoons? I mean, think about that. Think about that. And the Chicago Teachers Union, from what we've been hearing from Mike Smith, they just formalized what teachers unions are seeing all over the country. More and more children can't be in school. We have high infection rates. A lot of teachers have got COVID. High infection rates. And a lot of people are not in school. They're not. It's not that they don't want to be. And Dr. Knighton brought up a point yesterday, Dr. Verholden, that I think before we move on to the rest of the panel, that we've got to address. The world that we left in 2019 is not the world we're returning to. And we can't act as if the world that we left in 2019 was perfect and that everything was working. Why not have an option for remote learning and remote teaching? Think about this. Think about the child who has one parent at home. Think about the child who has a parent who's not functioning, who might be sick, who might be addicted to drugs. Anything could happen. Rich, poor, in between. They might not be able to leave their baby brothers and sisters at home that day. Anything could happen. They should have an option to be able to learn remotely. Think about that. Think about that. And we need to build a robust system from which we would all benefit. So, Dr. Deb, before I go to the rest of this panel, because you were having a mic drop moment about this new strategy, which is pretty much what we're dealing with right now, because the teachers union in Chicago and really all over the country, they want to know how can we live with COVID. And you have been saying that you got to have someone or someones. It just takes one, you and God as a majority, who would say to President Biden and those who are in power, this is not working. This is what we need to do. Or let's try this at least. Dr. Deborah Verholden, because what we're talking about, this new strategy, is really this is very connected to what these former Biden advisors, when they were on his transition team, what they said. We've got to learn to live with COVID, which is what you said last year. What was that, 2019?
That's just such a late message. See, this is why people like me don't make it to panels like this. Because literally, and this is, I'm not picking on any one person. When this article came out, and it was our former top doc in Michigan, a sister by the name of Jonay Caldoon, who was actually also on this task force. And I'm sure that was something that our governor arranged. Why? Because our governor was a real close contender, Gretchen Whitmer, to be the VP.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, these people, this is like, you know, we just recycling leaders, right? There's no openings and opportunities for not new leaders, because I might be many things. New, I'm not. I'm 22 years postdoc, Johns Hopkins trained, card-carrying epidemiologist. This ain't my first rodeo. I've had over $88 million of NIH grants that I led and about $250 million of grants that I've had a seminal role on. I'm an accomplished scientist, but I don't play those games. I speak truth to power. I'm willing to work with people, but I'm not willing to step over the trash. The claim to fame for the chair of the committee was she has a strong history of consensus building. That is literally the words that were used in this big, you know, press release that the government did, that then the New York Times and all these other major articles, newspapers picked up. She has a strong history of consensus building. And my only question was, does she have a strong history of reducing health disparities, of reducing health inequities, of getting policies enacted, enforced, and then ultimately changing outcomes? I don't just need somebody that knows how to play nice in the sandbox, because this ain't a game. If you building consensus hasn't moved the needle, then here lies so-and-so. They were a great consensus builder. Who wants that? We need somebody who can produce results. And the results that we want to produce isn't consensus. It's progress. It's changing the game. It's reducing the disparity. It's, you know, having leaders actually who keep saying, follow the science, actually follow the science. And we just don't have that.
You're following corporations. You're following corporate
Yep.
dictates to get everybody back in the building and to act like this is a normal time. And it's not, Dr. Deb. It's not. I mean, from what we've been hearing from Mike Smith, kids have already not been in school. They've already not been there. Teachers have already not been there. Not because they didn't want to be, but they've been sick. I mean, why aren't schools testing sites? Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, really. And once you diagnose me with COVID, what's the next step? Do you just send me home so I can get sicker? What? This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Stay right there, Dr. Deb.
Santita?
Yes.
Santita?
Yes, because I'm trying to
that
connect all of you here today. Dr. Knighton?
Yes. I just want to bring this up, and this is actually from a personal perspective, right? And it's kind of like the catch-22 in regards to the situation that I would say the teachers and administrators are in, right? So the goal is to have all of these kids in school. But I will tell you from a personal experience, I'm a first generation of my family to finish high school, and I can tell you that even right now, for some of my family members that don't value education, when they were given the option for their kids to do virtual learning, even if it was or was not a part of the school system, they opted for that. And these are individuals that still may have jobs and are not at home monitoring their kids. Meaning I have nieces and nephews right now that have straight F's but have perfect attendance. And so I just kind of want to bring that up because, like, I know that we, think that, let's say, virtual learning is, like, the perfect solution. But I'll be honest, with us knowing that there's undiagnosed kids with ADHD, learning issues, we know that there are not necessarily parents that are parents in their kids, meaning that they're not actively there making sure that their kids are understanding the content and sitting still to be able to learn the content and making sure that they're grasping it or that they even understand it themselves. It's a challenging situation just in itself. And so that's why when I emphasize, I do believe being in person is important, but we have to stop looking at it as if it's only one stakeholder group that matters, meaning that we have to be able to provide safety for the kids, have to be able to provide safety for teachers, have to be able to provide safety for support staff. admin that may have the consequences of their decisions that are going to come down. And I just don't think that we think about it holistically enough. And to Dr. Deb's point, just really quick, our system failed us. And I'm telling you, Dr. Deb, we need to do an article on this, because I think the issue is the lack of team science. So had they had a nurse there, had they had an infection preventionist, had they had an epidemiologist, had they had an infectious disease doctor, not just Dr. Fauci, but a team of experienced individuals, mental health, everyone should have been brought to the table for us to do not only just, I'm not even saying a root cause analysis, because that's after. Well, actually, we can right now, because we can talk about how it failed. But us actually thinking about like some sort of failure safe mode analysis, where we actually look at what would be the unintended consequences of our actions before we continue to keep putting stuff in place that's not going to work.
Well, because I want to bring Mike Smith into this as well as Dr. Reeves. You were discussing some, instructions, really directions for people how to keep a classroom safe and things like that. Because please explain why Mike Smith said, I think we need you in Chicago. Because Dr. Reeves just posted. Dr. Reeves, what did you just do with some of the work that the infection preventionist Dr. Shanina Knighton has done? What have you done in New York?
So what I created going in this year was a Google Classroom for U of T members. Right, we have our students in there. Dr. Knighton, the first day back, I invited her to speak to the staff because I know the people I work with, and I wanted them to be educated on the next steps of protection for themselves, because what I realized is we're working in a system that's pushed by corporate America that does not value the safety of students or staff in the schools. And I wanted someone who knew the science, was an expert at what she does, in order to educate them the right way. So Dr. Knighton did an excellent job of presenting to us the pros and cons. It wasn't one-sided where she said, well, you have to be vaccinated. She spoke to whether you were vaccinated or not. These are the safety measures that you can put in place. These are the things that you can do to protect yourself. Separate from being in the school building, this is what you can do outside. This is what you can do at home. So it was very valuable information that they could utilize both in the space and outside of the space. She spoke to the fact that our students need to be safe. She spoke to the fact that we have kids with special needs that also need to have safety protocols and measures in place for them. So when they stepped into the classroom that following week, they now had a better understanding, not from the corporate side of education, but from the scientific side of education. So I turned around and I had Dr. Knighton give me that same presentation. I put it in that Google Classroom. That way, if any of my members, any of my colleagues forgot something, they would be able to go back into that like I would expect my students to do going into my Google Classroom with my work. They can go back to that and have that right there for them as a reference. Not just here, but outside of our school.
Well, hold on.
So
Mike
it's available to them.
Well, no, hold on. Mike Smith, do you all have anything like that? Is the Chicago Teachers Union doing anything like that? Or would that be helpful?
I mean, that would be super helpful to have a place to kind of go to, just to kind of support not just members, but the community as a whole on this is what we need to do. Because the only thing we can do right now, because the city isn't providing proper guidance, support, and resources, is to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves safe. So it's going to be a huge effort because we're not getting the right support. We're not necessarily getting the right information from the city. And this is how we've gotten this far.
But you know what, Mike Smith,
keeping ourselves safe.
Stay right there, but I think that's really been the driving message that we're getting from Washington down to the states, down to the cities, because all they're telling us to do is to get vaccinated, which protects you from hospitalization. It doesn't protect anybody else. So, I mean, you're saying that what we need is a group effort not only to protect ourselves, but to protect each other, to protect our environment. You're not getting that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because even with vaccinations, I mean, they work, but we've had instances in schools in Chicago where fully vaccinated people caught COVID, and this has been happening since October. We've had multiple outbreaks of COVID amongst fully vaccinated people in October. 13 teachers out of one school. We had an incident at another elementary school where class after class went on quarantine. Teacher after teacher who were vaccinated caught COVID, and we even had an instance of a member die who was fully vaccinated in the end of November from COVID. He tested with the city on Monday, found out Tuesday he was a little sick, went home, Wednesday caught COVID, and passed away that Friday.
Oh, my gosh.
So this has been going on in our school buildings since September, October. And this is one of the reasons why we're asking for common sense things right now. Let's pause. We don't want to stop school. We don't want to not work. We need to pause because of the rise of infection in our areas and the reality that vaccines are a way to protect us, but there's so many people in our communities who aren't fully vaccinated. So the one thing that they're saying to protect us is the one thing we don't have. And with the rising rates, it just doesn't make too much sense to go back into these buildings right now. We want to work. We're willing to work remote. The mayor of the city of Chicago canceled school, locked out all the teachers, and not just teachers, staff members, clerks, clinicians, everyone. Her own daughter, the mayor's daughter, is on remote learning right now. Other city workers are allowed to work remote, but for some reason, the Chicago teachers aren't allowed to do that. And it's really, really unfortunate for the people of our community.
I think you got to follow the money. Really, because it's not just the teachers and the students and the support staff who are in a school, right, Mike? You have vendors who make a lot of money. The people who get us the food and our supplies. There's the business of education, like there's the business of show, like there's the business of sports, like there's the business of everything. There's a lot of money wrapped up in this, right? A lot of money. And so these are corporate decisions as much as they are community decisions. It seems to me.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. Because the community is hurting, and we're not necessarily benefiting from any of these decisions.
Mm-hmm. Find out who's doing business with the school system, Mike. You all need to find that out.
We have.
And call them out.
We know a few companies, yes.
Yeah, and call them out. Because they're the ones who are driving this. They're the ones who pushed us back to work, who pushed us look, if America wanted to give every man, woman, and child a stipend to stay home until we get out of this, that's fine. But you know what they did? They gave it to Walmart. They gave it to Amazon. They gave it to the big corporations who didn't need the money anyway. They're the ones who grew. The mom and pop stores died. You had farmers who couldn't get food to the street that they were on. Now, this is shameful. It's just shameful. Deborah, something needs to happen here in terms of policy. That's why we need the Deborah Verholdens on these commissions. The commissions are worthless unless you have Dr. Deborah Verholden on them. Let me go to Dee. Dee from Chicago. How you doing, Dee? And thank you for calling back.
Good morning and wonderful, wonderful New Year's blessing to you and your great staff.
I love you.
I had the pleasure for a short while of being in CPS. 27 children packed in a room, hot. Another time, even on the college level at Malcolm X, a room that was so hot you could almost faint. I think it was Dr. Verholden that said ventilation and circulation months ago. The classes do not have this. Where is the cleanup plan? Why are teachers not on the boards of planning of every city? They are the first line of caring. They are intermingling with the children. They should be planning every room, clean twice a day, every desk having shielding. Where's all this money, Santita? Where's this 30 million or however much million? Where's it gone? Where is it for cleaning these rooms? That's what the teachers are concerned about, sending old air back in constantly. What is that? It's like an old fan. It's got to be a different system. Money before minds, Miss Mayor. Money before minds. That's what's happening. Our children are precious gifts. They deserve better. Clean the space up, have shielding at every desk, and then you can talk to the teachers, but put the teachers in the planning in the first place, and they'll make a difference.
You know what? And Miss D, I hear you. And put the janitorial staff on that committee too, because they know what they're cleaning. They understand the underbelly physically of where they are. Bring the food staff onto those committees too. Bring them together. All of these people deserve to be there. They all deserve to be there. Dr. Verholden, it's like, because we're missing the mark here. I'm like, who are we talking to? Who's making these decisions? And do they even know the conditions under which we're asking these people to work and our children to learn?
Yeah, but again, it's about, you got the real experts, right? And Dr. Knighton put it in our kind of more academic context of what we call team science. But that's what you're all talking about, getting the right experts and stakeholders. Because there are some people who are just the experts of their lived experience. And that would be the parents. That would be the students, right? And it's not that, because I sit at these tables oftentimes when we talk about these conversations with the schools. And this was something else that I shared in real time. We convened a group here. I reached out to our then superintendent and said, whatever you need to inform your decision making, I got you. I can't make the decision for you because that's what leaders do. Leaders have to make decisions and go from decision to decision to decision and kind of keep things moving, right? A good leader also can admit, that was a mistake, and will de-implement something that's not working. A lot of these reopening plans that people had only dealt with one side of reopening, which is when do we bring them back? It never dealt with when do we send them back home and what do we have to do to send them back home. So I haven't been a big advocate for, we just need to make all learning remote and blah, blah, blah. Why? Because I'm not a teacher. I'm not a school administrator. I'm not a principal. I'm not a school superintendent responsible for the education and learning and wellness of a whole district. Because these superintendents, we talk about education. They are the wellness keepers for our children. Kids see teachers way more than they ever see doctors, and many kids see their teacher more than they see their own parents. So this is, I understand that it's not trivial, the role that schools play. And my concern is, I can speak to it from a public health perspective. I'll tell you from a public health perspective. I can tell you about spread in community. I can tell you about, the likelihood of kids being vectors. I can talk about the pediatric infection rates and how those are changing. I can give you some additional insight to put it in context and say, but we're also not testing very well in the pediatric population, so potentially these are underestimates. And I can even give you an estimate of how much that estimate is underestimated. I'm very clear of what my expertise is, what my lane is, and what it is that I bring to the table. People like me need a seat at the table. But I think Dr. Knighton hit it right on the head. We need all the right experts. Because I also had a thought, if they just send all these people home, the people who can, their kids will be fine and they'll galvanize. And this will be the new thing to replace charter schools and other things. Give me my allocation for my kid, and I'm going to just teach them all at home. And what will that do? That will further marginalize the kids who really benefit from being in the building, from having those kinds of learning opportunities. It's just, so I'm like, again, I only bring forward the expertise that I know I have, and I listen to the expertise of others. And I feel like collectively, let's come up with something. This is the whole point of a task force. You got a task at hand and the right people around the table to get the task accomplished.
Hold on one second.
We haven't been doing that. We've got,
Hold on. Because very quickly, Mike Smith, does the teachers union have a task force? like just as was mentioned here. I got about 20 seconds.
Yeah, we have a group where our officers kind of speak and check in with people.
Look, let me just cut to the
really
chase. Hold on, let me cut to the chase because
Okay.
we're going to come right back at the top of the hour because we're going to keep on talking about this. Put Dr. Knighton and Dr. Verholden on it. You're going to kill a lot of birds with one stone. They're black, they're women, they're young, they're all of that, and they're credentialed as they can be, and they need to be on this task force. They brought Dr. Deborah Verholden out of Johns Hopkins, where she's on a fast track to be a big person there. They brought her there. They brought her to Michigan State School of Medicine to build their School of Public Health. That's what she's doing there. She's still at Johns Hopkins too. You need her, and she works with the mayor and the governor. She's in Flint, Michigan, so she's seeing it all. And you got Dr. Knighton, an infection preventionist. Are we trying to prevent infection? So stay right there. Everybody call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763. WCPT, we're going to keep talking about this today. We're going to keep on talking about this because this has got to be made right. I don't want to fix blame. I want to fix problems. And I want Dr. Knighton and I want Dr. Deborah Verholden on these task forces. You should too. They can help get us through this. That's it. Back in just a minute. Mike, you need people like her.
Great candidates.
We need them. Can I say something real quick, though? Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Because this has come up before, right? Because Santita, you got the whole Chicago crew, right?
Mm-hmm.
And was it T.O.?
T.O. Hardiman.
I'm trying to think of who it was that I spoke to, that you had connected me to, that was dealing with something, in the education. He's over one of the unions. He was over one of the unions at the time. I can't remember exactly. My point is I thought, I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to, interact with you and your group, but you need local experts. Mm-hmm. And I ended up connecting him with a brother by the name of Kareem Watson, I'm not going to call him the Deborah Verholden in Chicago because we do different stuff, but the kind of fierce advocacy, the kind of, strong science foundation, the willingness to do the work and step forward and work in partnership with, teachers and parents and school officials and all of that. He has that too. And I know he was really instrumental earlier in the pandemic in supporting some of that work. Mind you, he has now been snatched up and is a director at NIH over a whole different program now, because this is what happens. When you emerge that way, people try to pick you up. I'm not interested in those types of things, right? Mm-hmm. I get tapped for those things. I'm like, I don't want that, because I need a certain amount of autonomy and freedom to speak my truth and to go where it makes sense and not have to feel like I'm muzzled we've seen what happens when you take a strong agency or, strong leaders and put them in some of these government roles. They just change. They just literally change. So I know there are local experts. I don't know. Dr. Knighton is more of a unicorn because there's only about, I think, 5,000-6,000 infection preventionists in the whole country.
That's right.
My point is, I would be happy to help find and figure out who are the local people like me who can bring the kind of data to bear and all of that, but who are also going to be humble enough to understand that it's not just all about the data. I think data is everything. I think it's important, but I know it's not the end all be all. When I say it's everything, I mean like we should be talking from what's so. But that's not the only factor in decision making. And there are a lot of scientists like me who, while they have a deep appreciation for the power of data and how important it is, they understand that ultimately that's not the end all be all. So I'd be happy to help find some local people also and some local experts who could really join the fight. Because a lot of people want to, they just don't have a way in.
But see, the thing is, given your background, given where you come from, we need to know that you exist. And I'm not going to back up off of that. We need to know that you exist. And when we are out here striking, trying to figure out, or having sick outs, We need to know that you exist. I mean, the first time we saw a glut of black physicians is when, as they've been trying to get black folks vaccinated. Black physicians have been in existence since before Daniel Hale Williams, who invented open heart surgery. I mean, come on. They need to be talking to you.
I agree, Santita. And when it comes to Dr. Deb, because many people don't
She
know
brought
this,
you here.
but the fact that's it, and she not only just does that and is an expert in terms of the science, but she understands what needs to be brought to the table when we're talking about stakeholders and what goes into decision making, as well as how to operationalize things. And I think that is the importance of it. And that's that piece of implementation science that people never talk about. And so I think exactly to your point, we are a long way from there, meaning that a lot of the information that's provided, how I told someone, you can go online and the CDC can say wear a mask, but do people know how to launder that mask? Do they know how to manage it with their cell phones and other things? We don't think about the practical stuff. And even though, like, let's say the Chicago schools shut down today, right? Or they send a few kids home because they quarantined today. Those kids may be still at home, but if their parents are out working, it's like, long story short, the testing is telling us a little bit of stuff, but we're hitting a moving target, which is why preventing infections and taking these practices is a more safe plan than us just focusing on testing. Because you can send kids home for 7 days, right? And if their parents, let's say, work in healthcare, their parents may be partiers, their parents may not believe in COVID, as soon as they step back at school, even if the school shuts down for deep cleaning, they're right back at risk again. And so the goal is when you show people how to live, when you help them to understand the practical things that they are doing right and doing wrong, they can then correct them because they're more knowledgeable. But if you're not giving people that knowledge base and they're just worried about sitting at home and testing positive and testing negative, they don't know how to keep testing negative or how to prevent being infected the next time, which means that the next time that we go into a pandemic, we're right back in the same situation. So with these kids, I'm telling you, they're very resilient and they're very smart. My daughter can probably give you better hand hygiene education and better mask education than what I can, and she's 8. And it's because these are things that we have to constantly emphasize. She teaches our friends. And so when we're looking at some of the strategies that are used or not being used, how are we using these peer groups just within themselves to be able to educate their peers on infection prevention? And so I just don't think that we're using enough of working strategies that we know work in the past to be able to educate ourselves and educate each other to make sure that people are staying safe.
30 seconds.
And also, too, the speaker earlier,
I got 20
think of her
seconds.
name, but she came on and she was talking about the classrooms and being dirty. But the fact that they don't even talk about hypochlorous acid solution is perplexing to me. Because
15.
non-toxic solutions that our bodies actually produce and helps us to build up a stronger immune system. And this same exact solution can be used to clean classrooms. And it's something that we don't talk about.
Have they
It's
talked
more
about that,
safer than
Brian? Hold on.
change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I'm Santita Jackson. This is a morning drive show of progressive radio, the Santita Jackson Show. It is Friday, January 7th, 2022. Let me give a shout out to my brother, Jonathan. Love you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Everybody send Jonathan some birthday love. Everybody. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763. WCPT, you can text us at that number too. We're talking about keeping our children safe, keeping the teachers and the support staff safe in our schools. The third largest school district in the United States. They are not in class today, once again, because there are concerns that teachers have about safety. But this is not a Chicago problem. It's a national problem. They have this same issue in San Francisco. They're looking at having a sick out today in Oakland, in Atlanta. Every city all across, and every city, town, and hamlet across the country, this is the issue. We don't know how to mitigate COVID. We don't know how to do that. So what are we going to do? Got to do something. So I want to hear from you. 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. I hope we can get to talking about voting today, but we're going to talk about this as long as we can today on the Santita Jackson Show, because this is a real issue, and this is something that we are really, really dealing with, as many teachers are fighting to get online so that they can remotely teach their kids. Many of them have been locked out. Come on, you guys. We got to do better than this. Chicago will have a high of 14 degrees today, mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul will have a high of, oh my gosh, 4 degrees, partly cloudy. Everybody, if you know someone who's an elder or who needs some help, or just their neighbor, check on them. Make sure that they have heat. And if they don't have heat, try to help them do something about it. Please, please, please let us love each other. Love thy neighbor as thyself, as the good book tells us to do. The Dow closed down 170 points. The NASDAQ closed down 19 points, and the S&P 500 closed down 4. In the NBA, the Timberwolves will be facing off against the Thunder. The Wizards will be playing the Bulls. And in the NHL, well, it was kind of a mixed bag for us. The Wild were triumphant over the Bruins, 3-2, but Chicago fell to the Coyotes. The Coyotes, 6, Chicago 4. More than 60 million people are under winter weather advisory alerts all across the United States. Please be careful, everybody. It is freezing out there. The Capitol riot. House Democrats seem to be interested in highlighting the effects of last year's Capitol insurrection. You had all of the Democrats and one Republican, including, and the former Vice President of the United States, Dick Cheney, participating in these services, observing the first anniversary of the January 6th insurrection, everybody. And now you have Majority Leader from the U.S. Senate, Chuck Schumer, who is now pushing to get voting rights. High time that he does that, because Republicans all across the country, from state to state to state, are gerrymandering Democrats and progressives out of power, and they are peeling back voting rights. Chicago travel advisory. Every state and 4 territories now are on the list, everybody. The Chicago Department of Public Health added the only state and only territory that was not on the COVID-19 travel advisory. Wow. The U.S. average daily case rate is 100,000 residents, but it is not that high all over the world, and we need to be talking about that. Officials are taking action as Omicron cases are surging across New York City, especially in the Bronx. Former Biden advisors, they were on his transition team, are now calling for a new COVID strategy because they say COVID is endemic. In this pandemic, it is everywhere. No school today, as I shared with you in Chicago, the third largest district in the country, as the CPS and the Chicago Teachers Union continue to discuss and really wrestle with school safety. So everybody, let's talk. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I want to hear your thoughts about this. Chapearl has been holding. Chapearl, what is on your mind today?
Hey, good morning, Santita, and thanks so much for taking my call this morning. I wanted to say that CPS had released some numbers yesterday, and they had, and just from January 2nd to January 5th, they had almost 1,200 cases of positive COVID, and that was self-reporting tests. And then they had almost 12,000 of students and teachers who have self-quarantined. So it is very apparent to me that we are in the midst of a major outbreak in CPS. And the thing is that what I'm not hearing from the mayor, she keeps saying that, oh, we have all these resources. She is not dealing with equity. So every time that they have a press conference, I'm always putting the equity question, because we know that there is a clear difference between school resources at Northside College Prep and those that are in the schools of Inglewood neighborhood and Roseland neighborhood and Lawndale neighborhood. And I don't think that CTU is really explaining to America that there is a great discrepancy in the resources that the kids have. And so you may have all of these great testing and protocols over here at North and at Walter Payton and Jones College Prep, all of these places that have all of these great resources and funding. But when you have the equity issue, that is what the main issue is in Chicago, the lack of equity across the board when it comes to the cleanliness of the place, the social distancing, as well as also mask availability, test availability, and everything like that. And so we have to, as parents, support the CTU because they're fighting not only to protect themselves, but to protect our children. And so I support going remote until we can get this under control because I'd rather have my children alive, COVID-free, than to be dead and can't see them again. I mean, this is a series of life and death, and that's how we have to look at it, Santita. Thank you.
12,000. Mike Smith, those are some big numbers. And it's only when you came here a couple of days ago that we began to see and hear just the fact that, you really formalized a process that's already been ongoing. I mean, we've already not been in school. We're already not there. We're already infected. So why don't you respond to Chaparral?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers that she's providing, we believe aren't even accurate. We believe there's undercounting because CPS hasn't been able to even do enough testing to find enough infections. Not only that, we've been getting calls from members saying, I went into school on Monday or Tuesday, and now I'm testing positive. Are they letting the students know that I'm testing positive in those classrooms? And the answer is we don't know if they're accurately tracking it. And this is not just one teacher, not just one person calling it. It's a lot. And what has been obvious is what the caller just pointed out. There is huge discrepancies between neighborhoods, buildings, and communities. And these are things we're trying to lift up. There's some parents who are completely happy, even some teachers who are completely happy with going into a school building right now under these conditions. And that's because of the resources that they have in those communities, the access to testing, to vaccines, to healthcare, right? They have those in some parts, but that's not the story for everyone in the city. And eventually, even those places where you're comfortable is going to hit you because we're all interconnected. Mm-hmm. We all ride the same buses, walk the same streets, go to the same stores. What we have in the city of Chicago is a mayor who is willing to manage a system as it is. She's not willing to invest, innovate, and create and help build a system that is equitable. She's simply walking around bolstering in the success of being a Black mayor. And that's disappointing to me because I know it wasn't easy to get to her position. The system that allowed her to get there was hard. And she's not willing to correct or help build the system so that it won't be harder for other people who look like her. The schools that I go to, the people that I talk to, they don't have what others have. Mm-hmm. They work just as hard. They put the same effort into everything that anyone else does and probably twice as much. Yet we are still fighting for some kind of equity and equality in education. 50, 60 years later, after the Civil Rights Movement, I call it the Second Reconstruction, And we're still trying to reconstruct some kind of equity and equality amongst public education, education in general, in the city of Chicago. People are aware of this, yet people don't want to go in and correct it. We've been asking for ways to rethink about education in the city of Chicago, but we can't even get there yet because we're still bargaining, we're still talking to the city 2 years about how to do school right in a pandemic situation. It is really challenging to talk to someone who, one, isn't willing to even come to negotiations to discuss how we can move past this, recognize that there were mistakes made by the city. How can we build up? How can we create policies that keep students in school? These are questions that we've been asking. These are questions we're still pursuing, and we're not getting anything. And right now, folks have to make a decision. We have to take a stand. Are we willing to accept the system as it is and leaders who simply manage these systems that put us in these places? Or are we going to stand united to say, you know what, it's time that we put things in our own hands because we know what we need. We know we deserve better. And we're going to do that, and we're going to get it. And you brought up other school districts across the country. I mean, we all need to stand up. We all need to say, in some places, people who work hard every day aren't getting treated like American citizens. We aren't getting treated the same. Why is that? Why do we have to accept that? And we don't. We really don't.
We don't. I mean, Dr. Reeves, are you seeing this in New York?
Actually, I am. You know, we started out our new year with a reopening plan that was agreed to by the union as well as the New York City Department of Ed. And what they in turn did, you know, once they got the teachers in the schools, they went back on, city went back on a lot of what they agreed to. This week alone, we have over 700 students who have tested positive in a school of 3,900. We came into the school year with our numbers dropping, and it's been dropping. I mean, today's weather doesn't help, and the mayor could have easily said, well, you know what, let's go remote today. He decided I still want those kids in the building, so everybody
let me interrupt you there. This is where we have to grow in our understanding of power. This is something that I learned when Reverend ran for president in 83 and 84. We didn't realize how little we knew about power. Please, we'd only been voting since 1965. We had not had 20 years of voting rights when he ran for president. We had not had that. These are corporate decisions that are being made. Corporations are driving our government. They're driving the wars. They drive every single thing that we do. Our mayors and our elected officials, increasingly, they're figureheads. Unless we apply the public pressure that is necessary, that will make them deal with the corporation so that they will say, it's you either deal with me or you're going to be out of business.
Well, that's why we've been going to the parents. Because the parents drive the corporations. We've said to the parents.
And go to these corporate heads too. Go to the corporate heads too. You got to deal with them. They're the ones who have pushed us back into the workforce. They're the ones who are increasing the spread. They're the ones who stand in between us and universal single payer health care. They're the ones. Shame on them. And shame on us for not understanding the game. We're 400 years into this American project. The American project itself is a corporation. It is a corporate project. You had kings and queens who were coming over here to raid this country that didn't even belong to them because they wanted more riches. That's a corporate project. That's all that this is. That's the way it was in the beginning, and that's the way it is right now. We need to know who the vendors are in the New York public schools and the Chicago public schools and all these public schools and make them do right by us. This is ridiculous.
Our largest vendor is Bloomberg.
Then you know what, deal with him. Pull him out.
our largest vendor. He set that up before when he was mayor. He set it up where everything, all the machines that come in were controlled by one of his companies. You know, we have food services, and it's a different division from the teachers union. They're under a different union.
But Marnie, how is that not a
headline? Were here throughout the pandemic.
Marnie, how is that not a headline?
Everything is a headline here in New York. It just depends on who's reading that paper. So we have the New York Post that's been talking about this. We have Gotham that's been talking about this. It's just not national news.
But it needs to be national news. And we're not going to read the New York Post because it's right wing. You know, I'm a New Yorker. So, you know, some of us will say, I don't want to read the Post, even though I read everything when I lived there because Post was also tabloid. But that having been said, you know what? Let me get some of these other callers. And well, you know what, Dr. Knighton, what are you hearing?
So that's the thing. I just want to also let Shapiro know, let my family from Chicago know and New York know. Cleveland is no different. You know, when I'm talking about Cleveland Public Schools, meaning like I've absolutely 100%, as a part of my teaching requirements, I'm actually in the schools on a regular basis doing height, weight, blood pressure, and vision screenings, like even during now. And so we are closed talking about Cleveland Public Schools because things are being cleaned right now. But I can tell you when we're talking about, let's say, like the resources, it is a resource issue, but you know how that thing goes where we have to make do with what it is that we have, meaning that it may not necessarily be the most top-notch machines. You know, somebody may not be able to come in and provide foggers or those things. But the fact that, you know, people can make disinfectant solutions out of water and cheap materials, the fact that they can be taught, you know, how to properly clean opposed to just thinking that spraying something down is sufficient or just hurrying up and spraying wipes. And so I just want to bring up that, yes, equity is a big issue. I had an issue with equity when it came to the mask because it's like, how are you going to mandate or require something that you're not going to provide? So I just want to say that in a lot of the work that I do, it is around the topic of equity. It's addressing equity. It's making sure that things are being done in a manner of which not only can someone that's privileged take advantage of being able to learn infection prevention, but also someone that may not have those resources as well.
Let me go to, who else? I have so many people who want to call. You know what? Closemate, we're going to continue. If you all don't mind, I want to take this till the end of the show. I was going to talk about voting rights. We'll talk about that on Monday, but I got so many people who want to weigh in, and I'm going to let you do that.
I can call Daly and Patilla to let them know.
Okay, please do that. Please let them know. Let me go to Lady Norma from Indiana. Lady Norma?
Yes, hello. This is Lady Norma.
Wonderful hearing your voice.
Thanks for taking my call, Santita. I'm sorry?
Wonderful hearing your voice.
Thank you very much. The reason I was weighing in today is how about, since the coronavirus is airborne, how about sanitizing our air? The reason I'm saying this, number one of the larger stores here in Indiana, it's called Menards. It's kind of like Lowe's or something like that. But anyway, right at the beginning of the pandemic, like March, right away, like we went under full lockdown on March 23rd. This would have been like March 24th, 25th. You go in there and they're telling you, we're putting a sanitizer in their air, and they said so. So how about that? The other thing is, there's a gentleman in California, Dr. Schultz. He makes something called Air Detox. You can get it in a little spray bottle and spray it in your home. It smells great. I used it back in 2009, but not okay. However, he sells this stuff in gallon jugs. How about getting that into some ventilation systems and literally sanitizing the air? Then casinos put oxygen in the air. Ask some of the health professionals if this makes sense. It's my understanding that the viruses don't do particularly well in highly oxygenated air. How about adding some oxygen to the air? And then, of course, the first thing they're going to say is money, money, money. Well, you know what? Now that, we need to put our money where our mouth is. But I'm thinking, how about sanitizing the air? The other thing, going into the schools, I saw this on a little YouTube thing early in the pandemic, and I don't know where to find this particular YouTube video. But they had the Japanese children walking on something like a mat where they were sanitizing the soles of their shoes as they went into the building. How about something like that also? And then real quick, relative to Santita, you are creating like a whole little network here. We've got New York, Cleveland, Chicago on the line. How about let's create a Citizens Institute, create an actual vision, clear, 2 or 3 days. I used to be an executive legal secretary, more than happy to do the groundwork on this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's develop a clear vision, articulate it for Chicago, certainly, get it on paper, get thousands of people to sign it. I think
That's my bad. I think we have like 30 seconds.
Perspective out of the mayor. So those are my comments.
No. Stay right there because, but that's why I'm trying to connect everybody here because you have a lot of people with a lot of great information, but they're the ones who are not getting onto the right platforms, or should I say to the bigger platforms, because this is the right platform. Look, the civil rights movement never ended, everybody. It is ongoing. It never stopped. Dr. King only spoke to big audiences maybe 2 or 3 times in his life. Most of the time, he marched virtually alone. Let's not romanticize that period. You are the movement today. You're it. We need to make some things happen. I'm not going to wait for Dr. Knighton or Dr. Verholden to get on a platform. We have a platform. Let's lift them up ourselves. That's it. You know how it is. It's after we lift people up. Michael Jackson was a superstar before he got to Motown, and he certainly was a superstar before Thriller. Yes, he was. He was a superstar in our community, was he not? So you're too young to remember that. I remember seeing him at the Regal, Mike. Oh, yes. I saw him performing for Mayor Hatcher when he was running for mayor in 1967. I was like 3. And I don't mind giving my age away. I'm glad for every year, every moment God has given me. Yeah, Michael was a superstar then, as was Aretha Franklin. And James Brown. So cut it out. The mainstream catches up to us. We're the ones who make the superstars. And let's make this right. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Oh yeah, I had to take you all the way back, Mike Smith. Michael Jackson,
I feel like my mom went to that show.
Come on. My mother took us to the show. Little Stevie Wonder was on the bill. Little Stevie Wonder. Now, we didn't know what we were looking at. Because you just sit there. I think my mother probably couldn't find a babysitter. But, honestly, because that meant I would have been 3, Jesse 2, Jonathan 1. They wanted us to see things. They didn't have a lot of money. But what they gave us was a richness of experiences. And I wish people would understand that, because my father said, he would always come around after the age of 12. My mother said, no more Christmas presents, because you all will understand that this is Jesus' birthday. That is what we're commemorating. It's the Mass of Christ. So my father would kind of come around and say, and he and my mother didn't split on anything. Everything you got into trouble if you tried to get in between them. If mom told you no, that meant no. Dad told you no, that meant no. There was no negotiating with them. But Dad would come to us and say, is there anything you want for Christmas? Because Daddy will, take you shopping. And I know he had gotten a wink nod from Mom. And I was like, no, really. Number one, I'm not going to get in trouble with Mom. But also, I grew up in an environment where I was just glad that my father was alive every Christmas, right? So I was like, and then my basic needs and so much of what I wanted, I already got anyway. I really wanted books. And so my parents indulged me. And that was it. That was it. And he said, we're all lights on the Christmas tree, baby. And if one of the lights went out, the tree would never be as bright. So that is how I look at all of this. It is not about the money. Your presence is the present in anyone's life. So let's be present for each other. Whether you have a child in this system or not, we're all affected. Thank goodness COVID is airborne because we're all impacted by this. Yeah, I said it.
Exactly.
Hey, Miss Jackson, did you want me to drop Lady Norma?
Well, you know what? I can say, Lady Norma, please, we're gonna get in touch with her because we need Dr. Deb and Dr. Knighton and Mike and Dr. Reeves. We need to figure something out.
Okay. Do you want me to get an email from her or something?
Yeah, she gave me a number yesterday, so thank you for that.
Okay.
And just tell her I'm going to let her go so I can let some other calls in.
Okay, and then did you still want me to call David Daly and Robert Patilla and let them know that we'll get to them on Monday?
Yes, please.
Okay. All
Thank
right,
you.
I'll do that right now.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
ZipRecruiter.
There.
Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively
Mike, you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
I'm still here.
I know mute.
So while other
Well, I have a lot of
Yeah.
callers, but thank you so much for extending your time with us today.
the needle in the
Yes.
Because it's a lot. This is a lot. And, and I'm hearing the way teachers are being played all across on television. And I said, wait a minute, these are corporate-driven decisions. And, and I'm tired of it.
Yeah. And the decisions that's being made aren't being made by teachers. We're just saying this is what we're doing.
30 seconds.
Cancel? We can't cancel school. Teachers are working. People send me emails every day of all the things that they're doing. They're lesson planning, they're grading, they're calling parents. We had folks out yesterday walking up and down streets, passing out flyers, letting the community know. People were canvassing. Teachers are out there trying to make a difference, trying to get people aware of all the issues that are going on, and that this is something that the city needs to be behind, and this is why. And when folks were knocking on doors, talking to people, they're like, no.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. And AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. And let's talk about the Chicago public schools, the New York public schools, San Francisco schools. They're going to have a sick out today. We're seeing this all over the country. More, and you have a lot of spread. We have seen a tremendous surge of COVID, which is what Dr. Deborah Verholden projected just going into the Christmas season. She said, we're traveling. We still have the pandemic with us, and people are living their lives, and they're doing what they do. And so now we have an absolute explosion. We have a surge. And so a lot of kids and teachers and support staff can't be in the schools. They're not feeling well. They've got COVID. What are we going to do about that? But you were saying something during the break, Mike. Talk to me.
Yeah. Teachers are still working. We've been locked out by the city of Chicago, yet teachers are right now waking up, lesson planning, grading. They're emailing their principal saying, I'm willing to work. Let me work remotely. Parents are contacting folks saying, we want our kids to learn. We got lists. I get emails every day, lists of tons of things teachers are doing, things that they would normally do at home and in the building anyway. Not only that, teachers are walking up and down streets. Yesterday, they were canvassing the neighborhoods, passing out flyers to community members, to parents, saying, this is what's going on. This is what we need to do. We need everybody behind this because COVID is impacting not just the schools, but the community the schools are in. Not just the communities, the cities, the states, the country. This is something that everyone needs to be aware of, and everyone needs to understand that we want to be in school. We want to work. We want to be able to do things, but we have to do them responsibly. We have to recognize what's happening and figure out as a group how to overcome this together. And it's going to take everyone to do this. And that's what we're doing. We're not just sitting at home. But we're on the phone, we're working, we're doing everything we can. And we're asking. We've been asking since Wednesday when they locked us out at 1 a.m. 1 a.m. in the morning Wednesday. We've been asking since Wednesday, can we work? This is what we are doing anyway, despite you canceling classes. We're still contacting parents. Kids are still going to learn because we're going to do everything we can to support the people who we serve. I wish the mayor had that same idea.
I'm telling you, chase down these vendors too, because that matters a lot. Because you got to follow this money in this system. You got to follow this money in this system. You got to follow this money. Let me go to Dave from San Francisco. Dave, what's on your mind?
Well, thanks, Santita, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, my sweet.
Listening to this, the biggest fear I've got now is about people getting bored in the middle of a disaster, in this case, the epidemic. But you always want to keep your eye on the ball, but if people get bored, then all of a sudden you get not only variants, but then you get patents on variants, and you get patents on vaccines, and then you get multiple variants, and then you got to have more patents. So the original smart idea in an epidemic is you make sure that the vaccine is what you call public domain, that some nonprofit or the government owns the patent, and so they don't need royalties on it. And they can pass it out and make sure everybody gets to make a clean batch instead of, some fly-by-night junk. And so the idea of whether or not, various neighborhoods or various school districts are well served, if they've got a health department and the health department makes a decree that this is what we're going to consider the standard for this county, and then they discover that certain schools aren't living up to that standard, then you can play the health department against the school district and make them both do the right thing. And so that's where the taxpayers are well served. You don't spend crazy amounts of money on wasted directions. You get it done right the first time. And luckily enough, 100 years ago, San Francisco was the worst city in America for that 1918 epidemic. Mm-hmm. We had the most deaths. So our health department got its act together with this one, and our death count as of last night was 688. Not 2,000, not 1,000. We're only at 688 because the rich chipped in and made sure that there were vaccines free for everybody. We're not a sanctuary city, so you don't have to show your papers to get a vaccine or to get a test. You can get a test for free. And I'll give a plug for Cecil Williams at Glide. Mm-hmm. They, to this minute, are setting up for today's round of nose tests and vaccines for free. You can cross the street from the Hilton in San Francisco's Union Square. You can get a free vaccine or a free test, and that's kept our numbers low. And the bigots that say, we got to have the exclusive one, and we've got to make sure that those people don't get it. I learned long ago, the bigotry is when some bigot figures out they can steal the tax dollars. And if they can diminish somebody, then they all of a sudden get to hog that money, and the rightful needed people don't even get a taste of it. So bigots figure out ways to hog the taxes, and they play religions against each other. They play ethnicities. They play every different play they can do to hog the tax dollars. So I just urge the activists. There was an earlier caller who was kind of alluding to this, that play the outraged taxpayer model. Taxation with representation means that we all get to use the tax dollars. We all get to use the vaccine. We all get to use the library and the schools and the sewer system. And for some snob to pretend that they not only get to hog all of that stuff, but then they get started with this not even paying taxes.
But it's not just snobs, Dave. Dave, it's not just bigots, it's big people. The oligarchs are running this.
Well, right.
I mean,
That's
this.
what I'm saying.
No, I'm just saying this is
taxation with
ridiculous because they won't
representation.
even stand. They're standing in the way of therapeutics as well. People get diagnosed with
Right.
COVID and they get sent home. I've
Engagement.
never heard of anything so crazy. I'm telling you. My
Well,
question
it's
is, I'm like,
engagement.
you can't give me anything aside from
Well,
aspirin.
that's where the bigots are trying to kill you, and
Ugh.
so it becomes obvious that the super rich don't want to pay taxes, but they want all the representation. So if the super rich decide that they don't want to pay taxes in the middle of a disaster, they don't want to chip in for the mutual aid of America, then they don't get representation.
Well, you know what? Something about the system just has to be changed because this is not working. Too few people have too much, and too many people have too little. Now, I'm not trying to reach into someone's pockets or their pocketbooks. No,
Well, Citizens United,
but
you've never seen
this is
Citizens United, right?
fundamentally unfair. Something is way, way, way off here, and we've got to deal with it. But I love you, Dave. I need to run to a couple other callers, but I
Hey,
love your
stay
thoughts.
safe.
Always love your thinking. You stay
Yeah, stay
safe.
safe.
Let me go to Carrie.
That's right.
Carrie, what's on
Citizens
your mind?
United is what you were just talking.
I'm sending you much love. Thank you so much, Dave. I got to get to a couple of other callers. Carrie, what's on your mind? Carrie,
Hi,
you there?
Carrie, am I on now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm
How are
here.
you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
I'm all right. I've been worried about the epidemic as well,
Mm.
The pandemic, I guess you would say.
Yes.
And I live in Spokane, Washington. It's not Chicago, but we're
Okay.
having problems here as well that sound very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I need to turn this.
Of course,
volume
take
on
your time.
that down so I can talk to you.
Of course.
With the teachers and the schools and what's going on with our kids during this pandemic. You know, we originally had shut down and the kids did the homeschool and they even gave them computers,
Mm-hmm.
which was pretty cool. I think maybe Mike from
the Chicago Teachers
Microsoft
Union. Yes.
helped give that to them.
Okay.
But
I'm sorry.
but I did see a lot of weary with the children.
Mm-hmm.
A lot's happened. A lot has gone down. I live in low-income housing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a white girl,
Mm-hmm.
okay? But I'm disabled. But I'm white. And I'm treated kind of poorly by the black people. And I'm like, why? And it's because I'm white. It's like, wait a minute. I didn't do anything to you. That wasn't my fault. That happened years ago before I was ever born.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know this issue of blaming. You know what I'm saying? The
Sure.
blaming thing.
Well, you know what I
That's
think it is, Miss Carrie. I think what we're looking at is responsibility. Unfortunately, you're being blamed for a systemic problem. You're being personally blamed for a systemic problem. You know, white supremacy. Well, you know, of course, and white supremacy absolutely drives the system, and that was baked into the cake so that we would be apart from each other and not come together and make.
My very first best friend, when I was in second grade, was a black girl. I mean, come on, give me a break. What do you want to call me a racist? Are you kidding me?
Well, what has happened? Why did that happen?
Racist.
Well, Miss Carrie, why did that happen? Is that happening where you're living? Oh, what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's because of where I'm living.
No, so your neighbors are treating you this way.
And my landlord, who's black, is treating me that way.
Now that's interesting. Because that have to be honest with you, that's a little surprising to me. I believe you. It's just surprising. It's just surprising.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be really honest.
Of course.
And the woman across the way is black, and she just lets all things go. She has keys to everything. She can go do laundry and do everything, but when it comes to watching out for all of us, she doesn't watch. I'm the person that watches out My car was stolen a month ago, and then my next door neighbor's car was stolen just 2 days ago. And she's like, and I'm like, come on, please.
But you do have friends in your building, right? You do have friends in your complex.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. And we've been watching out for each other.
Okay, because it sounds to me, Miss Carrie, like it's that you're dealing with some people. These sound like more individual problems, because I can tell you this has been my lived experience. When white people come in, well, no, let me just share this with you. When white people come into the Black community, and they show themselves to be friendly, and embracing, they're embraced almost with double love by the Black community. I mean, you saw that. I was listening to some of Tina Marie's music, and I just think about some white people who've come into the Black community who have embraced us, and we have embraced them. Of course, after we kind of looked around and wanted to make sure that you were sincere. So all I can share with you is that I certainly don't want you to be mistreated, and I'm so glad that God touched you in a way that you felt that you could call into this show and get a sympathetic ear. Because my concern is that you are a human being, but also that you are someone who struggles physically, and I want to make sure that you're not abused. You're doing okay in that regard?
I am abused by my neighbor.
Okay, now that sounds like now have you been able to report to anyone so that you can make sure that you are not abused?
I did talk to a police officer about it.
What about some of your friends in the complex?
They're watching.
Okay.
But they can't watch. They can't watch all the time. But this other girl's car got stolen, and she's like a basket case lady. I mean, like blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my God, you don't even want to talk to her because you can't have a conversation with her.
Well, because that sounds like an issue. I want you to stay right there, Miss Carrie. So I want to get you a couple of other calls, but I'm just glad to know that you are physically okay, and continue to hold on to your neighbors because they're going to look out for you. But stay right there. I want to say a few things to you once we're done with the show today. Miss Renee, you have finally called in. I cannot believe it.
Good morning, and thanks for taking my call. First, I want to correct something from yesterday, Santita. When I typed mask, that they had removed that. As soon as I heard you say it, I'm like, oh, no, that's not what I meant to type. It was temperature check.
But that's why you need to call. That's why you need to call in. There you go. And I was corrected.
My son said, stop typing so fast and don't post. You have to read what you wrote.
You got to call. Something like that. You need something like that, Renee. You need to call in. Okay. Always call in with something like that. But your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to respond to Dave. I believe that I agree with what Dave was saying. Some of the oligarchs are actually bigots. You can see by the legislation that they try to fund, the lobbyists that they send to keep us from having voting rights, to keep us from having the George Floyd Act that would specifically try to keep us from being abused and act to keep us from voting. You have to be somewhat of a bigot to just want to strategically hurt some people, and it's the same people that have been enslaved in this country and stuff. So I just wanted to say that I agreed with him on that. And I thank you for taking my call on this very frigid day.
Bless your heart. Well, I agree. I agree with him too. But I know that, you can't legislate people's hearts, but you can legislate and affect behaviors. Because let me tell you something. Someone thinking that I'm superior, I don't even pay attention. That I'm inferior, I don't even pay attention to them. They're just foolish. Because I know God did not make anyone inferior or superior. God made us all, and everybody's got something to offer. So I'm kind of done with that. What I want are these laws changed, and I want us to begin to look out for each other and understand that too few people have garnered too many of the resources, and the rest of us, too many of us, have too little. My pastor, Reverend Clay Evans, said, I've never seen God make a mouth he could not feed. And yet you have all these unfed mouths out here. And it's not their fault. It's because you got a lot of greedy people out here. It's just greed. It's greed. And it's not right. And when you look at this crisis that we're seeing in our public schools, just stay right there. You better look at these vendors. Look at who is making money off of the public schools, who's making money off of our children. That's where you got to, Mike and Dr. Reeves and Dr. Knighton and Dr. Verholden, you got to look at that. Dr. Verholden, you have seen the grip that business has on how we live from day to day. You've seen that, Dr. Verholden. Are you still there, Dr. Verholden, or are you on mute?
Yeah. No, I'm here. I mean,
because you see business, I mean, they control everything. It's not the people who are doing this. It's not. This is shameful. It's just shameful. Dr. Verholden?
Well, I've been talking about the money, right, the whole pandemic, because if you look at who's made money, and there were people who tried to say the pharmaceutical companies aren't in it for the money. They're not making money off of this. They make more money off of hypertension medication. And that is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
That is not true. I couldn't fight the person who said it when they first said it because I didn't have my facts straight. And I went and got my facts straight. And not only is it not true, it's very far from being true. So I do agree with you. We do need to follow the money. Because, see, what people don't realize is the reason these systems of inequity continue is because there's self-interest in them, right? Mm-hmm. There's a cost that the larger society pays, right? So you not taking care of, and we've learned this now, us not making sure that we had global equity in the vaccine has allowed variants to pop up in other parts of the world that now are our problem. And because of who we are and our infinite American arrogance, these things spread and tend to wreak more havoc in our country than they do in other countries because we won't honor basic, protocols. So following the money is really important because it'll get you to the source of where the problems are coming from and where the so-called solutions are being launched from. So this is the problem, is the solutions aren't coming from people whose skin in the game is the whole society. The solutions are being launched by people whose skin in the game is their own greedy interests. But they're the ones who wield the power. So I just wanted to say I really agree with that point that you're making about following the money.
Follow it, because they're the ones who said, okay, it's time to reopen. They're the ones who say, okay, test, not test. Because Big Pharma, who they drive, they fund like 45% of the funding of the FDA comes from the FDA comes from Big Pharma. What is that? How can you regulate people who you work for? That's crazy.
That would be like my kids giving me my paycheck.
Come on, how about that? Because you see these showbiz kids, they start running their parents. Whatever they say about Joe Jackson, he and Joe and Katherine Jackson did not let that happen. Those kids, the Jacksons, are afraid of Joe Jackson. He's gone on to glory, and they're afraid of their mama today. They did something right. Say whatever you will. They figured something out. So, I want to get about 30 seconds of comments from everybody on the panel today. I want to thank you first with all of my heart for staying with me for so long. But I felt that I wasn't devoting enough time to this because I really wanted you to get more of this out. Let me start with you, Mike. Talk to me. What do you need us to do? Mike Smith from the CTU, teacher at Inglewood High School.
Yeah, it's really simple. Right now, there just needs to be a pause until we can figure out how to do these things safely and keep everyone in the school buildings. You guys are right when it's saying follow the money. Chicago Public Schools, the city of Chicago, got about $2 billion in there, yet they only invested $100 million. They only improved 17 school buildings' air quality out of the countless hundreds with the amount of money we have.
17.
We requested only 17. We requested a nurse and a librarian in every school building. It will only cost about not even a third of the money they currently had, about 3% to do that. One in every one, and they couldn't do it. So at this point, we just need common sense things done. We need testing. We need to anchor vaccinations in the communities. We need better investment in our schools. We need clinics. We need very basic things. And right now, all we're talking about is pausing school until we can get those things, and then we can get back into school and keep the folks there. It's not rocket science, you know. And
it's common sense.
Really unfortunate that we can't. Yeah, it's really unfortunate that we can't take all the money and the resources that they have and put it in ways to help everyday people who work hard.
Oh, you know, I think really we can do it. Easy. We can do it, but it's going to take public pressure to make that happen. Period.
And that's what we're doing. That's why we're doing what we're doing, and we're going to need people to keep doing it because that's the only thing it seems that this city responds to.
Well, that's the genius of America. The system was built for you to work. The system works when you work it. Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman told us that. It works when you work it. The lobbyists for corporate America are working the system. That's why the system is working for them. Your lobbyists are your civil rights organizations. Your lobbyists are your unions. You must support them so that they can support you. It's that simple. I want you to stay with me on the Santita Jackson Show. Stay right there. Yes. I'm going to get some closing thoughts from everybody on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. But I want to give you all my love. And guess what? Mark Hay, happy birthday, my sweet. I didn't know it was your birthday, too. You and my brother Jonathan. Happy birthday, Mark. Everybody give him some love, Morning Stars. We love you, Mark. Love you, everybody. Dr. Deborah Fur Holden, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University School of Medicine. Thank you for bringing all these wonderful people to us. Dr. Shanina Knighton, Registered Nurse, Infection Preventionist, Research Scholar at Case Western Reserve University. You all are two of the most brilliant women I know. Dr. Marnie Reeves, Professor at the City University of New York, teacher in the New York City public school system, leader in the UFT and the AFT. I don't know how she does it all. And she's a designer, everybody. And then, of course, Mike Smith, you have made us so proud as we have watched you in media, making the case for our children, Chicago Teachers Union, of course, from mighty Inglewood High School in Chicago. I'm sending you much love, Mike Smith, even though it's not Whitney Young. I'm not mad. Stay right there. Look, it's public school, so it's all good. And I want Inglewood to have the same resources that Whitney Young and Peyton and Northside Prep and Jones Commercial, which used to be a business school. I want them to have those resources too. That's what we need. We've got a lot of work to do, everybody, and we can do it together. Love you, everybody. Happy birthday, Mark and Johnny. God bless. Do you all want to have some closing thoughts here? Boy, we have talked a while today. Whew. Does anyone else have? Dr. Knighton, do you have anything to say? Anybody?
Dr. Knighton dropped.
Okay. Dr. Fur Holden, do you have anything to say?
No, it was a good conversation. And I just really think this is the time, especially on these issues around education, that we put that mic in the hands of the educators and the superintendents and the union reps and the people that are actually out here doing the work. We don't need people speaking for people or on their behalf without authority to do so, and so, just bravo, keep up the good work. I'm going to keep fighting on my side for the things that I can fight for and try to hold some of these legislators to task for putting the policies in place that are going to solidify these issues that we know predated COVID, but have now been exacerbated and had the light shined on them during COVID.
Mike Smith, do you have anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I think the doctor put it exactly right. Our education system, the system itself wasn't great prior COVID, and those things have just been exacerbated. When we look at the communities that have been hit the hardest, it's a reason why. It's a reason why some parents say, it's fine for my kid to be in school and do things, where others are saying it's not. And that's because the system itself doesn't work the same for everyone. And we know that. And it's about time people start to recognize that publicly admit it, and not just admit it, but fix it, address it. There are sound things that can be done to elevate everyone beyond their current condition. And those things need to be done.
I agree, but we have to have I think, a social contract. I think we need to revisit that and make a decision about
Yes.
whether we want to educate everybody or not, academically, vocationally. Do we want to have an environment, a society in which everyone can be encouraged and enabled to live up to their full potential? Remember, this society was founded in slavery. So clearly,
Yes.
that is not one of our guiding principles, one of our founding principles, but it can be one of our guiding principles today. It was never the original idea for everybody to learn to read, for everybody to be educated. That wasn't the plan, my man. No. So we have to change that around, because the American project is an evolving one. The American idea and ideals are evolving. And we can work this out. We can. Today, no one should be without heat. There's no reason for anyone within these 50 states and many territories to be without food, clothing, and shelter. You can say whatever you want to. You can call me whatever. You can put any label on it. First label you need to put on it is Christian. Okay? Because I was taught that God made each of us, and God gave the world to us for all of us to receive its bounty. And we're not getting that. And this is ridiculous. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have some of the selective schools. I went to one of them, and I'm glad I did. But did that mean that I didn't think the South Shore shouldn't have the same resources that Whitney Young had 40 years ago? No, I don't agree with that. But remember, you wouldn't remember this, Mike Smith, but when South Shore was built, it was South Shore and Kenwood were the hot schools to go to. Lindblom has always been a perennial favorite. But these were like the schools everybody wanted to go to. And you should look at their alumni lists. So, we just have to make some decisions about how we want to treat people. To me, that's what it comes down to. Do you believe everybody should be educated? When my brother Jesse was in Congress, he created an amendment to the Constitution, an education amendment that would guarantee equal access to equal high quality education for every person in America. Because being educated is not your constitutional right. Voting is not your constitutional right. It's not a federally protected right. It's a state right. Now, so, we're going to have to make some decisions about what it is that we expect as Americans. And you need to know your history. You need to know your history so that you can know why we are here and where we are heading. They keep saying that this January 6th movement was a mainstream movement. Are you kidding me? We've had the KKK. How can you be surprised by what you saw a year ago? Black folks aren't surprised. Anybody who's lived on the downside of oppression in the United States or in the world, you couldn't have been surprised by that craziness up on the Hill. And you couldn't have been surprised because they tried to kidnap Governor Whitmer in Michigan last year.
Yeah.
I mean, really. Y'all act like, oh my gosh, you can't believe this happened. This can't happen here. Not in America. Oh, please, this is America. It just doesn't need to be America anymore. This is the same America. We got Dr. King on the mall. Why is he on the mall? Because he was killed. His neck was blown off in a motel in Memphis, Tennessee. And when he was killed, the agents at the FBI in Atlanta stood on top of their desks and cheered. After they sent him letters to kill himself. After they followed him into his death. James Earl Ray, who was found with loads of money in London. Are you serious? This is America. But it doesn't have to be America anymore. about that. Shouldn't be. So, Carrie, I don't think anyone on this panel would call you stupid because you are disabled. You are not disabled, you are differently abled. You've got some gifts that you've been able to develop because you have some physical attributes that you cannot use anymore. So you've walked into a very loving space. That is what the Morning Stars are. That is what we do. So I invite you to be a part of us, and I need you to understand how we operate. We operate in a loving way. So everybody, Dr. Verholden, is there anything you'd like to add? Have we left anything on the table today? India's glamour.
We gotta go. We gotta go do the work now because our teachers, this is crazy. I don't know. Are they getting paid right now?
Mike, y'all getting paid? Because they weren't you all locked out?
So the city of Chicago canceled classes, deny teachers the right to work, and not paying us. Now they can only technically do that. Not paying us. No one. They can only technically do that for 2 days because of some ability to cancel classes without having to make them up. But they cancel classes. They're saying that people can't work. They're saying that students can't learn. And they're saying that people can't get paid.
Now, this is where I would be curious what your union negotiates for you moving forward. Don't get me wrong. I think it's terrible for them to say you can't work, you can't get paid. I remember when my kids were in daycare, right, when they were little. If I didn't bring them one day, the bill remained the same. My mom had it stayed the same. Why? Because they said we have a space reserved for you. The care provider said we've set aside the time for you. It's not like I can go out and wrangle up another gig just for the day. So we have an agreement, and the agreement is that I'll be here to provide this, and you'll bring your kid, and they'll be taken care of, and blah blah blah. The teachers have a contract. They said we'll be ready. We'll be prepared and show up each day and do the work. And so if they are that, and the schools are saying, well, we canceling class, so y'all not going to get paid today, that really feels like that needs to be figured out in your future contracts that your unions negotiate. Because that's crazy.
Yeah, they're working on that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But you know what else you need to do? You need to make that a public issue. I tell you, that's one of the reasons I keep calling you back, because you all are not making the right. You're not. There's something that you're not doing. You're not making your point with the people, because the corporate media, which is called the mainstream media, they are making the point that you all have just unreasonably shut down the school system. I mean. You have to get out in these streets. In these streets, they're making that argument. Now you need these streets to make yours.
Yeah.
Well, can I say something?
Shut the schools down.
Mike Smith?
Yes.
Can I say something to Mike Smith? So we want smaller class sizes in New York City public schools, and what we did, and I can tell you across the board, we had a call to action. 1,800 schools. Everybody was outside from 7 o'clock in the morning, making sure the community was aware. We need smaller class sizes, okay? And that's when it hit the news. Had we not done that, it would have been swept under the rug. I think whenever you're making an act such as what was done in Chicago, you cannot have them on the side of right. You always have to ensure that as teachers, as members of a union, that you put your stuff out there before they put your stuff out there. What I did not see in Chicago, but I am fully in support of everything that you guys have done. You guys weren't outside those schools saying, this is what we're not getting. We need the community to help us to get it. And that's, doing it where you're trying to get it now. A lot of parents might be angry. You said it yourself. You have some teachers who are happy to go into situations that's not healthy for them. You have parents who have no problems with bringing their kids to school as long as their kids are in a school building and being taken care of. The bottom line is we have to start putting ourselves first. So that call to action should be well, no, we're not home. We're standing outside these schools saying we want to work there, and we need the community to support us to ensure that we're working there safely. So they have to visibly see you picketing, protesting, walking. You know, those are things that draw attention to your cause and get you the vast majority of the support that you need and can bring about change. But now we're talking about your mayor who shut Google Classroom down. She thinks she did something great. You're not hurting the teachers, you're hurting the students. What is it that the teachers union is now saying? Where are you guys out there on the streets saying, how do you expect us to teach the kids, but in the alternative setting, you're shutting us out, right? Because that's what she did. You have remote learning, but she shut you out of that. Right? That's what your community needs to understand. It's not that you guys want to sit at home playing video games and just laid up. You guys want to work. Right? So as teachers, as paraprofessionals, we want to be in the schools. That's what we love to do. That's our vocation. But if you're preventing us from doing that, then who's the person who's preventing our kids from getting their education? It's not the teachers. It's not the union members. It's actually corporate America. And that's what needs to happen.
Yep. And, you know, we're trying to make ourselves more visible. We had a lot of action where people flying and walking the neighborhoods and canvassing, but we need to do more. And it's just so twisted that when you think about the alternative to being in school is remote. The city of Chicago purchased over 100,000 laptops just for this purpose. And for the mayor to lock everyone out from that, it's just, I just don't understand, you know?
Oh, telling you, it takes hardcore organizing. Dr. King hired Reverend Jackson because he was a great organizer. He didn't hire him and then train him. What Reverend James Bevel said, I have found a guy who's at the University of Chicago in seminary who is an organizing machine. Because he and his two white classmates were testing the housing laws here in Chicago. And he was organizing the black business community in a way they had never been organized before. So Dr. King actually, as he was getting to know Reverend, who he had gotten to know at North Carolina, when my father was at North Carolina A&T, because he was always a guy who was going to go somewhere. He was president of Omega Psi Phi on campus, but he was the national vice president, the student vice president nationally of Omega Psi Phi. He was president of the student government. He was quarterback on the football team. Oh, make no mistake, he was going to be somebody and go somewhere. And so he knew him as an organizer. He knew him as a student leader, but he had to get to know him just as he knew Marion Barry as a student leader. But he had to get to know him and them as organizers, that's why people love Marion Barry so much, because he was a brilliant organizer. Brilliant organizer. Reverend is an organizer. And I bring that up because you got to organize these pastors in your neighborhood so that they can be making your case from the pulpit on Sunday. You got to organize these young influencers so they can be making your case in social media. And you're young enough to do that. You're not going to do it any other way. That's what has to happen. Reverend is 80 with Parkinson's. That has advanced greatly. He is still organizing. He is tireless, because that's what organizers do. They have a certain kind of personality. He and my mother are both organizers. They're always organizing people and connecting people. And you got to be up with people. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. But it's a lot of work that you have to learn how to do, right? So that's what I'm saying. You got to organize. We can talk about this, Mike. You have my number. You've got to get these parents involved, and that's a door-to-door thing. But you have to get these pastors involved, many of whom might be tied up with the mayor on one thing or another. But you can make the argument with them. We're fighting for your children. We've got COVID in our schools. All I need you to do, and that's why I'm saying, take the mayor off your lips. She is because the thing is, every mayor, you could have the most progressive person, put them in the office. When they have to deal with that corporate pressure, things change. What we have to do is apply people pressure, which is something we don't want to do because we're very personally vested in our politics, which is great, but it's not as helpful. It's not. It's not a mature way to do politics. You need to understand how the system works. How the system works. When Reverend almost became the nominee, we saw different forces come in on him that made you go, "Oh wow, this is not a free and open thing." When you get this close, you meet people who are Republican and Democrat because they control the country and the world. That's it. And they want to know if they can work with you. And you're not going to be president unless they can work with you. You're not going to be mayor unless they can work with you. So what you have to do while other people are pushing, we need to push too, which is something we don't really understand that we have to do. But organize these kids who are on social media, and you need to bullet out 3, 6, and 10 points that just go out every day. We're not getting paid and we want to be at work. You should say, the numbers say this about COVID infections, but we believe the numbers are being underreported, which they feel like is happening everywhere. Those are the things that have to, and you have to inundate. Just inundate. You have to organize people to call into all these radio shows, WGN, BBM, all of them, and call all over the country and make it a thing, Mike. That's what has to happen.
Yep.
And I'm saying that with love, because I
know. I know what it takes, and we need people to keep doing this, and that's why I was really honored to have you ask me to come and just share this, because it's important, because it can't be done alone.
Well, you got a home here.
The message needs to be out there.
You have a home here. We're going to do this again on Monday. Maybe not as long, but I want I want your voice to be out there. I really, really do. I really do, because I think that you are wonderful. Plus, I'm so glad to see a Black man teaching our children, I must say. No, that's very important. It's important for people to see that you exist. Because it counters so many false narratives about Black men. And so, I'm going to help, but I support public schools, but I'm so glad to see a Black man out here making this case for our children. That is very important to me, because people lie on Black men, and I don't like it. Well, I'm mad about that. I'm salty because I got a great Black father. so when you come after Black men, you're coming after my daddy, and that's where we will have problems. The earrings will come off. You understand? Okay. I do not play. And I see my brothers are great fathers. I don't play with that. And I've had some men who had children or who didn't have children, who my uncle St. Clair, who just made his transition a few months ago. I've had some great Black men in my life, and some great men, but Black men in particular, because you all get slammed so much. And I want people to know who you are and what you're doing. And like I said, you were brilliant on Aaron Burnett, the other night, and she kept you on a little longer than she'd intended to, because your interview was so great and the information you were giving. I'm in television too, so I knew that they were running long, and I was very excited to see that.
Yeah, I mean, she asked some good questions, but it's important that the things I said that she knew, because I don't feel that she was aware of.
I'm telling you, she wasn't, because she was. You could, if you could have. I don't know if you could see her.
I couldn't see her.
Plus, I know how these segments run. That was like a 2.5, 3-minute segment. That was on the books. She kept you a long time. And they just said, no, let's go with it, because you gave them information that they didn't have.
Yeah, and that's what this is about. People need to understand what's going on, and it's things that I feel that they know in the back of their heads exist. They just don't realize it exists right here, right now. And these are things that need to be addressed, because they're going to just continue if people don't do the necessary things to bring this to light and demand change.
Well, you know what? You got me. So let's get to work. Let's get to work. We might be doing this on Reverend's show on Sunday on his nationally syndicated show. I'll reach out to you and let you know.
Okay.
But we'll be back here on Monday. Because I think that
All
just
right.
going
That sounds
forward,
great.
we need to look at how we need to properly resource our schools and get the things that we need. If only 17 schools out of how many have gotten, I guess, what, new ventilation systems?
Upgrades. The number, I do have the number. I have to go and look at it.
Okay.
But that was only 17 that was budgeted for. And there's over hundreds that need the proper ventilations.
Get the numbers on that, because that's one of the things, those are, I can tell you some bullet points that you need to throw out there. You need to throw out there.
Yeah, I can share that with you.
Lead with like 3 compelling points, and numbers hit people. How many people have reported infections? And, but we feel they're being underreported, because that 12,000 numbers, that's like, whoa, that's a lot. Then, upgraded ventilation systems, 17 out of, say, 300. Like, wait a minute, what? Yeah. So
that
everybody
sounds
else,
about
yeah. No, so I'm just throwing a number out there.
But that's about right.
Okay. Okay. And that's like nothing, right? So that's not even 10%. That's a little more than 5%. That's crazy. I mean, that's crazy. And that's a corporate decision. When you walk into that mayor's office, unless you fight extremely hard, you become a functionary of corporations, because that's the way politics has been set up, because corporations are running, the banks are running the place. I mean, who else but your boss could come to you in 2008 with a 2.5-page memo and say, I need $770 billion by close of business today, or I'm shutting down your economy. That's what Goldman Sachs did with Nancy Pelosi. Who does that? That's corporate power. It's only when we start marching and pushing that they have sweet heat. We need street heat. That's what works. So let's just do it. So Mike Smith, you're a jewel. I can't wait to be with you. Maybe we'll have you on Sunday if you have any time. If this is what Reverend decides that he wants to talk about on Sunday. And you and Dr. Deb and Dr. Reeves, you still there? Probably not. She probably had to run. But I'm sending you all much, much love. Dr. Deb, I don't want to leave without you saying anything that you might need to say, if you're still there. So, okay. Well, I love you all. Did you have anything else you want to say, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers. It's 17 out of 300.
You're kidding.
Schools. Yeah, it really is. That sounded about right.
Okay, 17 out of 300.
And then speaking with the lady from Washington, when we brought up people who have disabilities, there's only 33 out of 400 schools in the city of Chicago. They got improvements for accommodations and accessibility. So 33 out of 400 schools. We talk about steps that lead into the doors. Only 33 out of 400 were corrected to accommodate people with disabilities.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, you know what? These are the things that the CTU routinely go on strike for. But you need
exactly.
We have to make a more fundamental decision about education, equal access to equal high quality education for everybody.
Exactly.
That's
and it's not the same.
Education is not a right in this country. It's not. So we have to make some decisions about that, because education is not your right. It is a privilege in America. If you don't believe it, look at the first year tuition at the University of Chicago for an undergrad. It's $100,000. NYU is almost there. They're off by about $2,000. I mean, who does that? Who does that? And then if your child goes in there on scholarship, they are wedded to the people who gave them the scholarships. Come on. So it's like we're not even breeding. We're not even breeding and creating free people. So you got to think about that. What do you want this country to be? Make up your mind, or someone will make it up for you.
Make it up for you. Yep.
So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. So you'll be hearing from me within the day.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds great.
God bless you. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. I love you all. Love you, love you, love you, love you. That's right, D-Ray. Ahmaud Arbery's killers are going to be getting sentenced today. Absolutely. So we will be on the lookout for that too. Sending y'all much love.